Welcome to another episode of the Chrissy Mayer podcast. We are on iTunes, YouTube, Spotify, and SoundCloud. And if you're listening to us on iTunes, please go and leave a 5-star review. I really appreciate all the reviews that everyone has left for me so far. I'm very excited to announce that this podcast is sponsored by Manscaped. Manscaped has the best tools for your family jewels. That's right. They're precision engineered. This is a really excellent company. They're based here in the US. They just launched over in the UK. So now all my British friends can get in on this action. I don't know if this has ever happened to you, if you've ever accidentally nicked your balls shaving and then tried to have sex. It's very painful, or so I've been told. I was once with a guy, I'm not going to say who, but they totally cut the base of their dick while they were shaving and they were in pain the whole time. It ruins the mood. I actually had Frank try the new lawnmower and it worked really, really well at just tidying that whole area up. And I swear it made his junk look bigger. And I definitely want to get the weed whacker for my dad because that takes care of ear, nose hair. If you're a hairy man, I suggest you get it for yourself too. The battery lasts up to 90 minutes and comes with a really great recharging station. It's legit. It's waterproof. They have a cutting edge ceramic blade and it will reduce any awkward grooming accidents. If you're a dude, give this a try. Go to manscaped.com. Use the promo code CMP for 20% off plus free shipping. And ladies, you already know what I'm going to say. Get in on this too. Christmas is coming and you should be coming too and looking at less pubes. Do you know what I mean? Am I picking any pubes out of my mouth right now? No. It's because my boyfriend uses Manscaped. Use the promo code CMP. Get 20% off plus free shipping. Also, I got to tell you guys about Cushy Dreams. Cushy Dreams offers a full line of premium smokable CBD. They specialize in extraordinary CBD-rich hemp flower, aka this bud, in cans, or the pre-rolled CBD joints, which I prefer and are so much easier. It tastes really great. I really like the Create blend and the Hustle blend. They also have a Dream blend, and they also have Relax. So they have all these different strains. Some are more sativa, some are more indica. It's just whatever you need. For me, it's really great because I get a ton of anxiety. It can be crippling sometimes. And I found that Cushy Dreams really helps me with that. And you can enjoy all the health benefits of CBD without getting high. You're not going to La La Land. You don't feel high at all. It's just the CBD. It's legal, ships to all 50 states. Join the men and women who are sick of vapes and gummies and want to smoke their CBD. Cushy Dreams. Smoke your CBD. 100% hand trimmed, independently lab tested, very quality, grown here in the USA. What more do you need? Go to cushydreams.com, KUSHY. Get your high quality CBD bud. Use the promo code CMP for 20% off every order, not just the first, not just the second or third, every single order, plus free shipping. Get in on it. So excited to have these guys on the podcast today. Joining me today, very special. I have two co-hosts, comedian Sean Morton, known him for years, love him, happy to have you.
Thank you.
And very excited to have as a co-host today, comedian Chris Scopo. Hello, hello.
Hello, how are ya?
Do you have a witty mug there?
Oh, I had the killing me, Smalls.
Oh, wow.
I got that one. Did not plan that.
I love it. And I'm so excited to have this guy on the show today. His dad was a 9-time MLB All-Star. We know him. We love him. He himself is a rising voice in sports media today. He works for Outkick, which is Clay Travis's media site, and also a pretty big deal on Twitter these days. It's Gary Sheffield Jr.
Hey, thanks for having me. I'm good. Honestly, it's just been so hectic with all the election stuff. I would say I'm glad it's over, but obviously it's not. So this whole thing is just dragging out, and I'm hoping that we get some type of just something finalized. I mean, honestly, not to say either way, but because everyone wants their candidate to win. But for me, politics sucks. I've always hated politics. It brings the worst out of people, and I'm ready to talk sports again.
It's the absolute worst.
And Gary, you live in Arizona, right?
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
So you're responsible for some of this mess.
We absolutely are. And what's crazy is, obviously you saw the tweet. My vote, my mom still just confirmed it right now that my vote still hasn't been counted. They're trying to say that I haven't voted since 2018, and there's been a lot of rumors. There's been plenty of rumors, people saying that you can't confirm those votes in person. It's more of just the machine confirms it in front of your face. And that's actually not true, because I voted in person literally every year, and I can get confirmation about those votes, except for this year, which is obviously surprising. So I'm hoping that if there is a recount, which I'm assuming there's going to be since it's so close, that I'll try to figure it out then.
Yeah, because I know some counties in some states will let you come back in and fix your
Yeah.
ballot, and some won't. And it's like, I don't know. Yeah, I always like to just be in search of the truth. Like, I hate to, I guess when I was younger, I labeled myself liberal, and I know people now, they'll look at my Twitter and they'll label me really right wing, but really I just want to know what's up and the truth of it all. And it seems like there might be some gentle stealing going on, but yeah, like I'm gonna be okay with whoever wins. I really just want it to be honest, and I don't even know if that's possible at this point.
Yeah, we thought everyone knows that there's voter fraud in every election in the history of mankind. There's going to be voter fraud at some level, but if it's going to be in bulk, that's going to be a problem, and it always should be a problem. So for the last 4 years, we heard about like the Russian collusion thing, and then now all of a sudden, like the same group is labeling it as, well, now you guys are just being sore losers and you can't accept reality. So there's no consistency there, and that's obviously what's so disappointing. So I'm hoping that we can get some type of fix in it.
Yeah, it's been crazy, and it's been splitting up families, and even sometimes I feel like I hear from the media they're encouraging, like, writing people off for it. I saw something in like Marie Claire or Glamour. It was basically like for girls and like women, like, yeah, here's why I broke up with my Trump supporting boyfriend and why you should too. And it's made people a little weird. Like growing up, my dad was always like, I don't know, he was for independence, or he was for like Ron Paul. He was like, politics is a sham. But then like I talked to him the other day, and like he basically was like voting for Biden to impress his new girlfriend. I'm like, all right, Dad, okay.
It's horrible. Yeah, people's identity is literally their politics. That's the first thing people do. And you can go on dating apps, Tinder, Hinge, all these different websites, and they actually have a setting where you can say, I don't want to match up with anybody who supports Donald Trump. I don't want to match up with anybody who supports Joe Biden. And to me, that's completely whack. If you can't adapt yourself to and be in a room with people who disagree with you fundamentally, you're just coddling this entire group. It's why millennials can't show up to any type of workplace and adapt to what they're seeing around them. They're honestly like, my age group are some of the worst people to hire, because you literally cannot trust that they can adapt and be cordial with people around them. So it's obviously everything. I believe it was Vice that published something like that, where they're like, if you can't go home for Thanksgiving, this is what you should say to your family. I'm like, are you guys? Yeah, I'm like, who is your supplier? You're on drugs, because this is literally insane. This is insanity to write off your family and not be able to show up. So for me, it's shocking.
I think it's funny on dating apps, like a lot of women goes, if you're a Trump supporter, swipe left. It's like, well, that's the opposite of being a liberal. A liberal is open to everything. So you're actually not liberal. You're actually conservative.
Right. That's very true. I usually just swipe right. That's an automatic swipe right for me. That's a challenge.
Yeah.
I like to get it too. It's fun to do.
Yeah, I saw so much hypocrisy between like, a core group of friends that I have that, no matter what, we're still friends, and we still, we'll go out and have beers or whatever. But like now it's to the point where some of them are literally distancing themselves. And the hypocrisy is like, I said this on stage the other night, and I'm not plugging a joke, but it was just a conscious thought that, like one friend was like, I can't believe that you would ever vote for Trump. He's a misogynist. He hates women. He doesn't believe in women's rights. He believes in grabbing them by the pussy. And I said to him, like, you're the same guy who snorted coke off a stripper's ass in 99. Just don't, it's complete hypocrisy. And in the end, it really doesn't matter who wins. Yeah, it really doesn't, because it all comes down to the state level, really, if you think about it. So the big cheese really doesn't mean anything at this point.
That's probably why Joe Rogan pretty much said it himself. I don't know why we even have presidents at this point, because all these matters should be handled in the state just in the state sector. I mean, how exactly are we having one person dictate what's going on in the entire country? It's pretty much insane. And now, obviously, me being from Arizona, we're starting to change blue, which is obviously surprising to me, but in a way it's not surprising because everyone's moving here. Like literally everyone wants to be in Arizona now, and everyone's leaving from California to join us, and now it's changing our politics. So I'm not surprised, because we've spent the last, it's really been like the last 6 or 7 years of people just shifting away from each other and not being able to really meet in the middle, and this is the product you get.
Yeah,
absolutely.
It's like Arizona is becoming like New York, like Florida. Florida is to New Yorkers. Arizona is like for Californians.
It is.
And you said before, I guess I'm in the millennial group. Like, I'm going to be 37, and I'm still a millennial. We were just saying how young Gary looks in this lighting. And you mentioned, and that like classic millennials are not the best to hire because of just maybe the way they were all brought up. And I know
we have issues.
We have some issues.
Yeah.
And Gary, the way that you grew up, you were traveling around a lot, moving around a lot. Your dad played on so many different teams, Yankees, Florida, the Dodgers. How did you feel like all that moving around affected your,
Well, for me, I was an only child. It was just me and my mom. So I've been in Arizona my whole life. So I got to see the whole transformation. I mean, for the most part, we were friends with people who disagreed with us. I mean, we had people on a completely different side of the field politically, and it was never a problem. I mean, it was really up until the invention of Twitter and Facebook. It was really Facebook that started it all, because Facebook came out and they're like, yeah, you guys are just going to be able to match up with your family. You're going to be able to stay in touch with people across the country. Isn't this great? I'm like, yeah, this seems pretty cool. I can meet new people. And then you started to see a shift in political ads and them understanding our data. And once they started to move it and monetize Facebook, and once they went public, it was like people became belligerent about politics, and people started to really care all of a sudden about politics. For the most part, people didn't really care about politics. And to answer your question about moving, I mean, for me, that I love that I was able to stay in one spot with my mom, and I was able to have that structure and stay in those and have the same friend. I had the same friend since 5th grade.
Oh,
so
wow.
For me, I absolutely love it.
I really did notice that Facebook turn, and you're like, oh, everybody joked about, oh, I'm talking about something and now I'm looking at the ad. Like, that's when it was cute. And if you're Facebook, you're like, hey, if we have all these, this technology, and if this is true, we can get everyone's info. Well, then what can we do with it? And then it was slowly, what's the next thing? What's the next thing? What's the next thing? And now it's like, oh, you have them like fully manipulating elections.
Yeah. Well, you give people a reason to do something. Like Facebook, 20 years ago, you go to work, you come home, you watch TV, you go to bed. Now it's like I'll argue with a Russian bot for 30 minutes online and have something to do with my life. It gives people meaning, which is the worst thing it could do. People just get together and go, oh, these people suck.
Yeah. You got to watch Social Dilemma. That's something I just put my mom on that.
I saw this hard
Social Dilemma.
It's
brutal. Insane.
Yeah.
It really is.
Oh, it was amazing. It was absolutely amazing. Although I have to admit, I did catch myself checking Facebook while I was watching it. I can't lie.
I did. I was on Twitter the whole time.
So strange.
It's bad. I'm already an ADD person. Like, I have an Adderall prescription. Like, I don't take it. I always try to tell myself no, I should be able to train my brain to focus and not be like squirrel. But, social media just feeds that part of me that needs distractions, and also and I'm like a comedian, the three of us on here, you also need that validation, oh, I'm getting likes, oh, my shit is funny,
Chrissy, have you seen how bad it is since the pandemic, where comics can't have validation on stage, so now they have to post every little thing they do with their life just to get a little bit of validation?
Yeah,
it's take a seat, relax, it's over.
I really have to really wait a few minutes. Not everything I'm thinking needs to be a tweet. I know that's a given, but I really have to look back and be all right, if this is not really obviously a joke or piggybacking off of somebody else's comment into something that's going to be funny, okay, I probably should save it,
I actually took a week off. I took a week off of social media. I think it was last week or a week and a half before that. And it was very freeing. It was very, very freeing.
Yeah.
But again, I'm the old person in the room, so I remember the time when social media really didn't take over your entire life. So I remember just being able to read a book or just watch mindless television. And I'm not talking about anything like heavy with the politics, because that's been on TV for a week and a half too. But it was very freeing to not have to worry about somebody else's opinion, because I remember a point where there was very few people on television that you actually listened to and valued their opinion. Like, I can go back to watching Dan Rather, who, like, if you weren't reading the newspaper, you can tune in and you would hear a very strong opinion. Now I can, I can listen to a fan from Nebraska who's telling me how I should fucking vote and why I should have 13 guns. It clouds your vision. It really clouds your vision, and it really it affects the way for you to process your own opinions too. So I really suggest taking a break every once in a while. It's really healthy.
Yeah, I miss like the days, where I could just go outside, throw a handkerchief on the ground, and that's how, you meet people.
I'm not that old, bitch. Jesus Christ.
Hey, I'm 26, and even social media wasn't a big part of my life until I was really just entering high school. I mean, that's when Facebook was starting to come out. I was used to growing up, and you would see everyone's bikes out front of someone's house, and they're like, oh, here's all my friends. And people actually went outside and met up with people and interacted. And online gaming really came out, and you started seeing people connecting online. You started seeing people connect just by sitting at the house, and they didn't really have to go anywhere. Then that's when Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, all these different networks really started, and we no longer had to go anywhere. And before you knew it, and then they illustrate it perfectly in Social Dilemma, they're slowly but surely impacting the way you think. No matter what you say, you can't look at all this information. If you go to Snapchat, you're seeing, instead of, hey, this is what Donald Trump said, this is a clip of what he said. Instead, it is, this is what you should think about what Donald Trump said. And that's what's going on in Instagram. That's what's happening, is people say, can you believe Donald Trump might have some good policies, but God, he says some crazy stuff all the time. I'm like, it's because when you're going to these platforms, they're telling you how to think. And it's the reason that, I mean, there's a lot of people in the country that naturally would have been liberal, but social media is bringing a lot of different people to that political side by them really just being shaped by social media. And I'm completely with you that when you take a break from social media for even just a day, you feel so much better. Even if you're having a good day on social media can turn on its head very quickly. I mean, someone can really change your day. Someone can write you a comment that you didn't like, and you can literally you go from being a happy person to being upset, and you need more of, I believe it was the dopamine they said that it brings. It is very unhealthy, and I definitely am worried about this. It's not just my generation, but everyone using it.
It's every generation, because I put up like a post about a show that I had Saturday, and then it was like a really important show for me, and I wrote this really long thing, and it got a lot of great response. And then a comedian friend of mine put a stupid comment on it, and I wasn't going to go back and forth. I deleted the comment. And I never ever do that, but I wanted to really promote positivity on that post.
Yeah.
Sure enough, he texted me 10 minutes later and said, hey, no hard feelings. I was just trying to bust your balls as a comedian friend. And I said, no, don't worry about it. It's all good.
Wow. You worked it out?
He apologized. Yeah, he apologized really quick. And I guess it's that thing where, even as far as the three of us go, it's a little different, because we're always trying to put a comedic spin on something. And whether it's our opinion or a comment on an issue or a post or something like that. But we have to also understand that you don't need to say everything that's on your mind all the time. And you don't have to try and knock somebody down just because they're being positive as well. I mean, if they're being a dick, you can also just jump in and be a dick about it too. But you have to remember that you're a human being, and you're a free-thinking human being. Before you're a Democrat, a Republican, a comedian, an actor, any of that, you got to think like a human before you think like anything else, and not be so conditioned to either attack or berate somebody or jumping on a bandwagon for something. It's all about free thinking.
Yeah, and that's particularly important. Like the three of us are you think comedians first, and then like Gary, you're like, it's like there's other things in your life or like your identity that like come before your political opinion. And it's like, especially when you're out there and like a public figure, especially if you are like with a growing Twitter, following like we all have, you're like, oh yeah, it's like, I have to remind myself, like, I'm not trying to be a political personality. Like I have to always remember.
That's
like,
the problem with That's the problem with comedy now. It's like, you're not funny anymore. Just be funny. And then people are like, no, I take my opinion seriously. It's like, well, you talk about your dick on stage for 20 minutes. I don't know what you want me to do.
True.
Yeah.
Gary, do you get a lot of online hate? Do you get a lot of like?
Oh yeah. All over the place, especially in the age of bots. I mean, I'll have people who are following me on Twitter, and you have the same thing where they'll literally be being followed by people who couldn't an amount of people they couldn't fill up my high school classroom, and they're spewing their opinions, and by the thousands. I mean, you're getting bot after bot leaving comments, and sometimes it's like you have to condition yourself where you can't let people complimenting you get your head too big, really, because if you get too excited about people praising you, you will do the exact same thing when people bring you down. And this is why, I mean, you see this with women on Instagram in particular. They'll post a picture and say, I feel really good about myself. I posted a picture and I got 452 likes. How many likes did I get? Oh, 452. That's great. Tons of hard eye comments. And then one person leaves a comment that's bad and they say, well, why don't you just ignore that one comment? But they cannot, because they've already been hardwired to think, wow, I should feel good about myself based on what all these guys are saying about me. So I try to just take it all with a grain of salt. And for me, I use the mute button a lot on my tweets. I will tweet something and I will mute the whole conversation and just come back and read only the comments that are of people that I follow or people that I've deemed to be important. Because if I even tweet anything, like I can tweet something about football, if I read all the comments, by the end you would feel terrible. And that's the way it's designed. It's designed to make you feel bad about yourself until you change your opinion into the popular opinion. And that's why you see so many famous people, so many extremely rich people and influential people all feeling and acting the same way, is because social media bots will literally lead them down that path.
Wow, that's a really good insight into it, because you're verified. Like we're all lowly. We're not on verified Twitter. We're just peasants. But like that
I'm still working on Instagram. Still trying.
That is a nice feature. Like, yeah, of course you can mute it, because like the more well-known you are, the more haters and like just shitty people are going to be commenting. But then like the flip side is, yeah, you're kind of echo chambering yourself. And then for me, I look at like Chrissy Teigen or like the real big celebrities. You're like, they're so out of touch. How did they get that way? And you're like, oh, this is kind of how it's.
Read their comments, right? If Chrissy Teigen, she'll say something. I remember she told us about her abortion, or not her abortion, but her miscarriage. And it was obviously really unfortunate to see the news. But when she posted it, it's like anytime an event like that, or an event where she gives her a political opinion, the bots are all just praising her. Social media in general is very positive for people who are saying liberal agenda. It will really only be major talking heads that have to come forward and say, this is nonsense. And other than that, Chrissy Teigen and all those other celebrities, they see absolutely just no speed bumps anywhere. Nobody questioning them. And if they do something questionable, if they, like you said, if they snort coke in 99, or if they do say anything crazy, all that is swept under the rug, because media will protect you if you think a certain way. So social media is not exactly a fun place to be when you're conservative, or even if you're liberal and you have some straying points of view. Mm-hmm. You're not welcome on social media, and it will be very uncomfortable for you.
And that's what sucks too. Like, you could just be a regular liberal, but the fact that if you don't agree with everything that the mob agrees with, like, they're going to kick you out or shame you or bully you till you're either on board with it or you shut up. So
yeah, it's the opposite of being liberal.
It is.
It's the opposite of being liberal. Yeah, they're not open to anything.
Yeah, for sure. Gary, does a lot of your hate online come because you correct me if I'm wrong, you believe, like, I think one of your big like issues is you think that steroids should be legal in the MLB, not just because for strength, but really more so for helping with recovery time. Do you feel like that has been kind of a controversial take? Do you feel like you get a lot of shit for that in particular, or is it just, because you're well known?
Well, it's just taken out of context, and that's usually where the criticism is. I don't want steroids to be legalized in baseball. I want there to be a moderation of some type of hormone that allows these players to heal, and that's something that there's a huge difference to that. I don't want players blowing up like balloons everywhere and them risking their health. But when doctors who are more than qualified to really take care of these players and watch what they're putting in their bodies to make sure that healthy amount of steroids are being put in their body where we can recover. I mean, non-athletes see this all the time. You have a knee surgery and they give you some type of steroid that helps. That's something that I would really like to see in baseball, because a lot of the big stars, the Bryce Harpers, Aaron Judge, they're never playing. They always hurt. And that's what happens. And we really forgot that when guys get this physical, they really shouldn't be on the field for 162 games, because it's not something that the body can handle. But in the steroid era, they could, because they were having those steroids pump up their body to help them be on the field. And it was really helping the product. So for me, if they can do anything that can allow these players to be better off and be able to stay on the field, baseball would at least see some type of upkick in ratings, because I know the Aaron Judge not playing, I mean, that and a lot of these big stars not playing for big chunks of the season, that's not going to help them at all. Try to figure out how this whole cut the cord era, how you're going to maintain some type of ratings.
Well, baseball has no idea what they're doing with like marketing
Nope.
players. They have Rob Manfred might be the worst commissioner in all of sports. He's horrible. And most people think that like steroids are just like, you just get like Barry Bonds and they're huge. It's not really true. There's a lot of steroids that don't get you big, but they get you flexible, stuff like that.
Right.
They help your body. And they went so far the other way with the steroid era. Now it's like forbidden. It's like forbidden to do it, but it's like these actually will increase the game, increase the views, get people to the ballpark. No one wants to see a 1-0 game. I'm sorry, no one wants to see a 1-0 game anymore. People want to see action. They want to see the best players. Aaron Judge, he's a 6'8", 250-pound monster. He's going to get hurt constantly.
Yeah.
Like, people don't realize this at all. Giancarlo Stanton's another 6'6" guy. He can't get on the field anymore half the time. People like Rob Manfred don't see this at all. They just think that, oh, steroids, get out of here. It's terrible. Baseball is going to be probably the 5th sport in like 10 years.
And it's all about evolution too, because if you look at it, 30 years ago, people considered potheads the most like low life people in the world. But now people are starting to realize that 30 years later, there's a tremendous amount of medicinal purposes that marijuana also can help your body and can help your mind and things like that. And steroids are the same way. So it's kind of like breaking the stereotype of all the damage from 30 years ago. And look, I can tell you, I mean, Gary, you're young, but I can remember watching Barry Bonds on the Pittsburgh Pirates. He was about 106 pounds when he played for the Pirates. And then he got traded he went to San Francisco and he became Godzilla.
Yeah.
So there was a gigantic difference. So we all knew something was going on, like, because nobody could ever get that big that quick. Same with McGuire too. I mean, these guys were pencil thin and just turned into these gigantic monsters that were blasting 600-foot home runs when they never did that in their entire life before. So that gets the bad stigma, like Chris was saying, because they only saw that aspect of it. People only saw the aspect of marijuana as people just want to get high. But there's people who smoke pot who are cancer survivors and they have crippling, terrible pain from chemotherapy. And pot is the only thing that takes away the pain from that. But because they have this stigma, people aren't even considering that. And I think this is really a time where we need to just look at history instead of just trying to repeat it and realize that things do evolve. And there's good parts to everything, really, if you use it properly.
Hey, it's like Bud Selig. Yeah, Bud Selig. I mean, he let it go. Yeah. Like he just let it go.
My grandma was on steroids. She wasn't hitting 500-foot home runs. It's ridiculous. Yeah, Rob Manfred has legit no idea what he's doing in baseball. He's gonna make baseball obsolete in the next 10 years.
I mean, isn't it obsolete at this point anyways? There's no one watching.
They have no idea how to market players. They're trying to baseball was trying to hide players to not let them be able to do their own YouTube channels and stuff like that until recently, because they didn't want one player to be over the sport basically. And Mike Trout might be one of the greatest players in the history of baseball. 5 out of 10 people wouldn't know who he is.
I mean, it's very true. And Trevor Bauer, he's the first guy to ever get a lids contract. I don't know if you saw that today.
Yeah,
How in the world is Trevor Bauer the first person to do this? Really, Mike Trout, Mookie Betts, all these. You have one of the best players in the game in Mookie Betts, arguably the second best player in the game, playing in an LA market, and he doesn't have any type of deal with lids, any type of deal with any of these other companies. How is that possible? And it's made possible by just doing no marketing whatsoever. They do nothing to help these guys.
And Bauer's good, but he's not like great. He's not Mookie Betts category. He's not Trout. Right. So he's doing it all on his own. He's kind of going to be revolutionary in the game and change it up a little bit, I think.
How do you think baseball should, or sports in general, should kind of steer away from trying to do the social commentary and try and do more of a rebuilding of the actual independent sports as well?
I mean, honestly, it's going to be player driven at this point, and it's probably, I can't say it's too late for them to really drive the players off the field and all that, but if they're going to do it, it's going to be the players individually. It's going to be, because Mike Trout's been standing around hoping that, and not hoping, but everyone's been saying, you guys need to market this guy. You guys need to figure out how this is going to be fixed. Mike Trout is going to have to take care of that himself, because the league has gone too far this direction to where they're like, we're not trying to promote anybody. But the thing is Major League Baseball 20 years ago was promoting their players more than they are now. You went on every Wheaties box. You saw Mark McGwire. You saw Ken Griffey Jr. You saw all these different guys. How did we take steps the opposite direction? And someone's going to have to ask Rob Manfred that, because I don't know what they're going to have to do on their end to fix things. But the players like Trevor Bauer is doing right now are going to have to take control themselves.
Well, I mean, even like 20 years ago, they had those commercials, the chicks dig the long ball. Those are funny commercials. Now I think Aaron does it as a Subway commercial. That's all he does is a Subway commercial.
Let the kids play, and all these lame commercials that really – and they make commercials that they don't practice. So the whole commercial is about let the kids play, let us pimp home runs, let us showboat. And then when Aaron Judge hits a home run and then he showboats, or anyone showboats, you get hit by a 100-mile-an-hour fastball, and then they say, don't ever do that again. So the baseball is just it's just whack right now. It's in such a bad place.
I think with baseball, what Rob Manfred honestly should do to get people to view is not ban fighting, not ban fight, but like not make it so severe. Don't give him a 10-game, because who watches the fights? Everybody. Everyone. Go online. Bleacher Report will have a fight between a 1-minute clip of the fight that actually, and then people see it. No one's watching a game that's just a 5-4 game. So if you allow fighting to kind of happen a little bit, people will be like, oh, there could be a fight in a game, to get people to the game.
Yeah, in the steroid era, I mean, we literally had people that are non-baseball fans today were adamant about Major League Baseball. I mean, they were excited about Major League Baseball, and it had a lot, not necessarily everything to do with the nuances of the game, but there was fighting. There were people charging the mound, and there weren't 30-game suspensions when a Jose Bautista punches Rougned Odor punches Jose Bautista in the face. These are ways that you can artificially change the narrative about baseball, because baseball right now, it was always really seen as an old man's game. If you thought it was an old man's game 20 years ago, I don't know what you possibly could think about it today, because it is literally designed for like a 75-year-old dude who's like, yeah, I mean, this is what a great game this is. And no 25-year-old on Twitter is going to say, well, this might be worth a click. I mean, it's just, the game is awful right now.
I always say that baseball is like, for the comics, it's like a comic in the 90s that was huge, and now he's doing this. Now he's doing the same Clinton jokes, and he's like, why isn't this working? I don't get it.
Yeah.
I don't know what's going on.
Do you think that baseball pushed players individually much harder 20 years ago, because actually the players were better 20 years ago than they are now?
Not even close. And that's the crazy part, is the players aren't anywhere near as the players are in the 90s
better now.
Weren't near as good. Oh yeah,
they're way better now. Yeah,
way better. Because the average player in today's game is just incredible. What they're doing now is insane. And you see the average pitcher throwing 100 miles an hour. In my dad's era, guys either looked like the Incredible Hulk and they were physically gifted as soon as they came to the league, or they looked like a YMCA dad. And you can turn on a game right now and watch the 1998 World Series where the Yankees are playing the Padres, and half the guys on the field look like just random average Joes.
Yeah, me.
The guys are throwing, the guys are throwing 90 miles an hour. It's no big deal. And they're just trying to figure out ways to impact the game. In today's game, I mean, everybody, you see Aaron Judge being 6'8", 6'7", 290 pounds. And there's other players on the field who can rival his physical ability. And that's amazing to me. And you would never see that 20 years ago. But no, they just don't promote the game because they found other avenues to make money. They found the TV deals now instead of being worth a couple $100 million, now
Billions.
Yes Network is selling for $3-4 billion. And the Yankees are like, well, shoot, we need to buy Yes Network back. Once they figured out how to make a sustainable income without really having any product out on the field, all the things that they could do to help the players individually, they couldn't give a rip about that.
Well, I think the owners got too successful. The owners made too much money, and then now the players want a little bit back. They want the power back. They're like, I'm not giving the power back.
No, absolutely. No, they don't care. They figured out a way that they can stink on the field and just use TV money to make their dough. And once they did that, you don't really have any incentive to help these players.
I was thinking about this too, about how a younger generation might stray away from baseball. It's an investment. It's an absolute investment of time, because you got to realize if you're going to a game, you're probably going to be there 3 hours at a minimum. And I think that has to do a lot of it, because I think the attention span of a younger generation is a lot less than an older generation, which also makes me think why UFC is so popular too, because there's so much action that is thrown into one fight that at the most, the fight's going to be 20 minutes long.
Yeah, this is something that, I totally agree, because this is something that the point you're making is something that baseball, they couldn't do anything to change this. That's the unfortunate part about that, is baseball is, you can go to a game and it used to be seen as a beautiful thing. Yankees, Red Sox, beautiful baseball, 5 hours and 40 minutes. Nobody wants to watch something that's 5 hours and 40 minutes. I mean, even when Lincoln came out, people were moaning and complaining that it was 3.5 hours long, because this generation doesn't want to sit through a 3.5 hour long movie. They just don't. They want to watch quick hitter 1 hour episodes of Game of Thrones. If you made these episodes an hour and 45 minutes long, people would be like, well, I need some type of grace period. I'm going to have to do something in between. But once things are shorter and just quick hitting, like UFC, this generation is going to gravitate towards it. So I don't really know what they can do to necessarily shorten the game, because it's like, it is what it is.
Also, they don't teach the game at all. Like, if you ask regular fans, why do they go to a baseball game? Oh, I like to go a nice day, drink beer, and have a hot dog.
Every time.
They don't teach the sport of the game, how it's a chess match, basically, between the pitcher and the catcher. They don't know why the second baseman and the shortstop go like this to each other. They have no idea what's going on, and they don't explain the game to regular, normal fans.
It's all about nuance. There's so many little tiny things that you catch when you're watching a baseball game. And I never really played, but again, I've been a Yankee fan since I'm 5 years old. So it's almost 40 years. I've watched horrible, horrible baseball, and I've watched some of the greatest baseball you've ever seen in your entire life. And it's all about catching the little tiny things, like Chris said. Whereas UFC, all right, the end game is very simple: beat the shit out of the guy until he's done.
Yeah.
There's no nuance. There's nuance to it too, as well. I'm sure there's a lot of it, but it's nothing compared to baseball.
Can I ask you guys this? Is anything enjoyed today that's nuanced? Is the real question. Is there anything we do in today's generation that you would consider nuance that this generation enjoys?
Yeah, what we do.
Porn. Comedy. Wait, never mind. TikTok. No, wait, never mind. Yeah.
Well, comedy, there's a tremendous amount of nuance too, because I can write down a simple joke that me, Chris, and Chrissy can all three of us say on stage. It's going to be the same joke, but it's going to be told 3 different ways.
Right.
So that's one thing I think about comedy, which is really good, is that, like, I've seen both of these comics work, and they're both great comics. I'm very different than both of them. Chris is different than me. Chrissy is different than Chris. So it's an art form. It's an absolute art form to what we do. And it also takes a very, very long time to create as well, as far as nuance and learning how your presence is and things of that nature. But I think that's a big one, I would say. What do you guys think?
Yeah, for sure. I'm just thinking about like how much of a detriment it is, because it's like, and like you guys are here because you're bigger baseball fans than I am. But I just know that every game I've been to physically, I've been more engaged in and was able to sit through and watch the entirety of versus watching at home. And that's what's, I feel like, really hurting. You know, you have cardboard cutouts and like all the fans aren't coming back, and it just seems like there's chunks of it being taken away, you know, and that there's, like you guys said before, you know, they don't know how to market the game and the players, and it seems like they're all about corporate wokeness, you know, rather than like the soul of it seems.
Sure. And look, I've been a Yankee fan, like I said, my whole life, and there was nothing better than going to Yankee Stadium, the old Yankee Stadium.
Yes, agreed.
And like I've been up to Fenway Park, and I've described it as when you go into the old Yankee Stadium or Fenway Park, it's an experience. It's not just going to a game where you walk in and you get hit with like this overwhelming feeling of like ghosts and history and things like that. And now I can go to Yankee Stadium now, and honestly, I've been there once. And this is somebody who's been to 500 baseball games in their life. I've been to one game at the new Yankee Stadium because it's so corporate. It's so stale. It's cold. There's there's very little emotion in there.
Well,
the museum.
Well, baseball doesn't want, they don't want fans. They want clients.
Right.
They want customers, corporations to buy they want corporations to buy 4 tickets a game, because it doesn't matter if they show up or not. Those tickets are being spent. Fans can't go to every game. They know that. Corporations go to every game.
Very true.
Right, because they'll take somebody into their box or whatever.
Yeah, no, it's very.
That sounds sexual. But
I think also like baseball is so out of touch with like how the Hall of Fame does it. The writers basically get the players in, and in the history of the game, there's been one person ever to have unanimous decision into the Hall of Fame. One person. That's Mariano Rivera. How does one person vote against Derek Jeter going into the Hall of Fame? Also, why do writers do it? They're all nerds. I think it should be former players. Former players should decide who goes into the Hall of Fame.
That's a great idea.
That would be great, right? But I mean, to explain why that unanimous thing has happened is like they have their little 10. They have 10 votes that they can make for these Hall of Famers, and 1 or 2 writers every year they look at it and say, well, Derek Jeter is going to make the Hall of Fame. I don't necessarily need to put my vote towards him, because probably someone else won't vote for him either, to try to help one of these bubble guys, a Larry Walker who ended up getting in, some of those guys who are going to squeak in. Well, that's a problem, because why would you have that in there? That if you see somebody who's a Hall of Famer on the ballot, you should be able to check their name, and there shouldn't be any rules or anything to skew that. If you see somebody that's a Hall of Famer, you should be able to vote for him. If you see someone who is not, or a bubble guy, if someone's a bubble guy and you think they're a Hall of Famer, you should be able to vote for him and not have to say, well, I need to take a vote away from Derek Jeter, because that's what happened. Somebody took a vote away from Derek Jeter so that they can put it towards one of their bubble guys that they want to see increase and hopefully get into the Hall of Fame later. That's a garbage system. And baseball has a ton of them. And I have no idea why baseball writers, because baseball writers have agendas just like anybody else.
Yeah.
Are you kidding me? Like some of these guys, my dad hated a lot of these writers, and
no
they
one
hated him.
No one liked Bonds. Bonds was notorious for being like an asshole to them. But yeah, they go after him. He's like, yeah, after a while, I'm going to get fed up with you guys. Now, when it came out, they're like, oh, now we're not going to vote for him. He's probably the best hitter in the history of the game, and there's no reason why he shouldn't be the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, some writers would come up to me. I mean, straight up, they would send me a message on Twitter and say, hey, I just want to let you know, loved covering your dad, and I believe, he was a Hall of Famer. And the people who didn't vote for my dad? People who never contact me ever because they don't like my dad. That's just what it is. And if you don't like my dad, then if you cannot like somebody and then watch their whole career and say, okay, this guy's a Hall of Famer, but I have the power to put him in the Hall of Fame or not, that should not be the way. It just shouldn't be, because people who just don't like you can dismantle the cape that you get to put on really to cap your career. And that's something that's really disappointing. I hate that Buster Olney or any of these guys can just simply state that my dad's not a Hall of Famer despite putting in 22 years of work. I mean, it's
500 home runs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
it's annoying.
It's ridiculous why he's not in the Hall of Fame.
You know, and you can't tell me that the one person who didn't vote for Derek Jeter was not a writer from Boston.
It was.
You can't tell me
I
that.
don't know if it did it come. Yeah,
They don't
never come out.
They don't come out. That's the thing too.
Never.
They don't put their face on it. That's why, remember a couple years ago when Mickey Callaway and the Mets went after a writer? I love that. It's like the writer said something. He was like, "Oh, I'm going to beat the shit out of you because you're weak." Like I loved it. I loved it. It's like, writers talk shit and they have the backing of their paper.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, if you can vote, you can be public. If you do not want to put your name out there, which is fine, you have every right to do that. But if you don't want to put your name out there and stand behind, and I've always been a big supporter of this even on social media, where everyone can just be anonymous and just kind of do what they want to do. You should not be able to vote for the Baseball Hall of Fame if you can't go public, because if you can't answer for your vote, I don't want to hear your vote.
I agree 100%.
Yeah. But because you would think, like, if they're in that position, they kind of want the attention, so why wouldn't they follow it up with being like, yeah, this is why I stand behind my vote. Like, let's talk about it.
Yeah, I didn't vote for a guy who got 99% of the vote, but I don't want to discuss it. Okay. I mean, to me, it's ridiculous.
It wasn't like with Jeter that it was there was any doubt. If you really think about it, probably one of the greatest shortstops of all time, next to Cal Ripken. If not greater than Cal Ripken.
He's better than Cal Ripken.
You know what I mean? I'm just even talking about stats-wise. He never had 1 second of controversy around his entire career. Universally loved by every single player. And people hated playing against him because he was so damn good. He was one of the greatest clutch players of all time. One of the greatest players in World Series history as well. How can you vote that he does not go into the Hall of Fame? I was salty about this for weeks, and I never give a shit about stuff like that ever. And I think part of it was because I saw his whole career. I saw him from the first play he ever made up until his last game too. So I think you have that emotional investment in there too, because you've seen, like, for years, I just came to grips with the fact that Don Mattingly doesn't deserve to be in the Hall of Fame.
Okay. Yeah.
Because for the simple fact that he was my hero growing up. So as a child, I looked at him as being Superman. But then when I take a step back later on as an adult, I go, well, okay, he had 3 really good years, and that's it. Right. So like you have to make that break of fantasy versus reality at some point. But with Jeter, there was no fantasy at all. He was just an absolute once in a lifetime beast.
Yeah, and the dude was giving gift baskets he was bringing girls over and giving them gift baskets. The dude had a perfect baseball career. What a gentleman.
Are you kidding me? What a gentleman.
Are you absolutely kidding me?
Dude, what's so funny? There's got to be so many mothers that got to explain to their kids why they have gift baskets with Derek Jeter. Why they have an autograph ball.
Awesome.
I would have it in the living room. I'd be like, I'd make a shot for it. Yeah.
How'd you get that signed Derek Jeter ball? Well, one night in Seattle, let me tell you.
Wouldn't it be great if one of the things was I sucked Derek Jeter's dick and all I got was his T-shirt?
There
would be awesome.
Yeah, there should be. I can't remember. I think I heard in college, like one of my girlfriends in college said she like either was hooking up with him or was in the room when they were hooking up, and they heard one of the other players say like, "Attaboy, Jeets." I was like,
wow.
I don't know. It seems fun. Who doesn't want to hook up with an athlete?
True.
I don't like the field I'm looking at, so I'm good.
Oh yeah.
There's not many WNBA players I've been looking at. I'll tell you that right now.
Oh right. Never mind.
I don't think they're looking in your direction either, if you know what I
mean. So what got, like, if you guys were all in charge, like, what would you do differently than what's going on right now?
Well, I'd probably start off with the blackouts. The blackouts are garbage. I mean, they just have to go. If you're trying to watch a game, if someone's putting in the effort to watch a game, there should be nothing TV-wise or rules-wise that's going to stand in the way. I mean, you could literally be, if you're trying to watch a game and you turn it on and it says, oh, okay, it's blacked out. What are you supposed to do as a fan that's really, you're not going to overcome. We're into convenience. So in an era where people are into convenience, you'll turn on, if something's not working with your blackout, I'm going to turn on Netflix. You've already lost my attention. I'm not working to watch your product. Sorry. And I'm a baseball fan. So you you really don't have to worry so much about me, even though you are losing my business. But for the person who's like, let me turn on ESPN or let me turn on Yes Network. I have the channels. Let me turn that on. Oh, it's blacked out. You're gone. And that's what that is. So there's a million different things. Baseball has to change, but they need to make it more convenient. If you post a video of a highlight play on Twitter, it gets flagged for copyright because the local network owns the play. What is that? Like in Trevor Bauer, these are things that I've learned just from listening and watching what he's been talking about. These are things that should never happen. Like they should never happen, because the younger generation, if you want to grab their attention, I need to be able to stream a great play on Instagram and have it go viral and get 1 million views. And people say, wow, I want to watch more of that product, but they can't do that. So it's definitely frustrating. They need to make it more accessible to these social medias.
That's so true of comedy. Just like we want to clip a really good joke from our set, get that, get the subtitles under it, get that online. And that helps so much with just like getting new fans and like this. Yeah, of course the same is true for sports.
They need to market players better. They need to market Fernando Tatis Jr., who's probably going to be the best player in baseball in a couple of years. They don't know how, like, social media wise, like I think one thing they could do is a game where, like, say Tatis hits a home run, 2 days later, get him in and go behind the scenes and go, what were you thinking that at bat? What was going on that at bat? Put that out there. That will get people like, oh, that's cool what he's thinking during the at bat. Just marketing. They don't do it. And then if they don't do it, they're going to be dead soon.
Yeah, they definitely have to reinvent themselves at this point, because now basically the only new fans that they're getting are children of older fans. So you're not, like you were saying, people aren't going to invest 3 hours in a game, but they might click on Instagram on one of their reels and they'll see, Mookie Betts hit a rocket out there, and someone will be like, wow, okay, this guy's pretty good. Maybe I'll check out the next game, who's a casual fan. And I think they have to really work on that base too, because otherwise the kids that are there with their parents in 10 years, when they're having kids, they're not coming to the game and they're not watching the game. So it's got to be a reinvention, and it's got to be now, because this is a very crucial time for them, because the next generation is here, but the generation after that is not guaranteed. And that's where you're going to get all the viewers and all the fans coming in. Also,
they need to get rid of Rob Manfred, get rid of him, and get a younger commissioner in there who's more down to earth.
Hey, Chris, do you hate Rob Manfred?
Yeah, he's the worst guy. I mean, I don't know.
You said Manfred more than I said Jeter in this whole podcast.
Because I hate the guy, because he's ruining the sport. He doesn't know what he's doing. He's legit no idea what he's doing in the game of baseball.
Yeah, you want someone that's young. Yeah, you want someone that's young.
Yeah, he's a lawyer too. Get out of here. Be a lawyer.
Very true. Eh? Yeah, you want someone young, but you also want someone that understands the older generations, because when you have somebody that can understand what can appease an older generation, baseball is like fishing. When your dad brings you to a baseball game, you're learning to love it. And then that's something about baseball is it's something that's like an acquired taste. If you just show up to a baseball game and you know nothing about it, it's never really going to entertain you. But if you can have the older generation be happy with the product that you're pushing, you can get them to teach younger people to actually enjoy the game. And then before you know it, they actually love the game, and they're sitting there talking about Derek Jeter 10 years after he retires. And that's when you create these fans that actually have a love for the sport, instead of just using it for a short-term entertainment.
One of the teams that you have no idea how much it pains me to say this, but one of the smartest teams, I think, was the Boston Red Sox when they brought Theo Epstein in. You have one of the greatest, historical franchises in baseball, whether or not they won as many championships as my team did or whatever. But, bringing somebody in as general manager for a storied team at 28 years old, they have a complete new generation of fans now.
Yes.
Complete, and he understood how to hit his demo in that. And that's a very, very tough baseball market for any kind of change in the city of Boston is fucking mind blowing. But he changed that, and now he's doing it with the Cubs too as well. There's a whole new generation. So, listen, I have to agree with Chris. Got to fire Rob Manfred. That's what it comes down to.
All right, I'll vote. The votes are in.
You'll vote.
It's just so funny listening to you talk about the Hall of Fame. I'm like, oh, this sounds so similar to like comedians. Like we all know really, really good ones that are like so overdue to get like a special or a Netflix special or something. And you're like, they're undeniably good. What the fuck? And you're like, oh, it comes down to like just the couple people who don't like them personally, or
Yeah.
For political reasons. It's wild.
Yeah, it's totally true. I mean, I used to see Sebastian Maniscalco. He was always one of my favorite comedians. And I remember thinking, okay, why is this guy not where he should be? And then he has a couple guys underneath him that he's branched off of. And I'm like, why isn't that guy on? And that's part of, you need other people to help you get to that level. You need some people to help push you, because there's plenty of comedians out there that you can throw on Netflix right now and they would really catch. But they need that extra, they need that push. And then that's something that baseball is in that exact same bracket.
Yeah, and it's like you're not doing what you need to do to grab the short attention span people by doing the clips or making the clips harder to see because of all the like the blocking or censoring or whatever. But you're also not like doing what needs to be done so that people can invest in players and have that like longer attention span, right? Like investing in the games, being there physically.
And also look at like certain things. Like, do you know JOMBOY, Gary?
Yeah,
I do. Yeah.
Guy. MLB should collab with him. He's good. He knows what he's doing. He's funny, and he gets his clips out to younger people. And they actually try to block him when he did the whole Astros thing. He kind of did the lip syncing thing. He saw what was going on. They try to block it because they didn't want it to be out there. It's like, no, collab with him. Get him involved.
Yeah, no, it's the opposite, because they don't need that. That's the problem, is they don't need JOMBOY, and that's the sad part. And they should use him. Yeah. And for JOMBOY's, from his perspective, he's doing what it takes to grow the game in a very particular way. But they could benefit from him, but they refuse to, because they're already getting their dough without him. And that's extra work that they have to put in to say, okay, let's do that collab with JOMBOY. Maybe that could help us with the younger generation, but they don't need it.
Well, that's what it comes down to. It comes down to money, and it doesn't really come down to the love of the game at this point. The game is actually secondary. The money is the most important part.
100%.
So do what you need to do to get people in to watch the game. People don't realize you can still make a tremendous amount of money by doing that as well. It's not all about the Doritos commercial. It's not all about the sponsorship on the backdrop behind home plate. Work on the game first, and the money is still going to come in no matter what.
Yep.
Although I definitely have bought more Utz pretzels, and I don't know why. All their ads. There was a game I saw where there was just like 5 Utz pretzels.
All over the place.
Yeah.
All over.
Gary, did you feel, because you played baseball for a time, did you feel a lot of pressure, you know what I mean, because of your dad, were you able to enjoy it without, do you know what I mean? Were you feeling pressure to kind of like be as good as him?
No, I always felt pressure on myself to just be great at something. And that's what I'm trying to do now. But for me in baseball, I never really cared a ton. I mean, I always obviously everyone wants to be a professional at whatever it is they start doing when they're a young kid. But I mean, who doesn't want to be a professional baseball player? But if I end up being successful in some type of social platform, then I will consider it a success, because usually the people who are criticizing me or whatever that's making me feel negative about not making it, they didn't make it themselves. Like that's usually what it is. So I wouldn't ever feel any type of pressure or any type of negativity. To me, it wouldn't matter. I'm honestly plenty happy what I'm doing now.
Yeah.
It had to be a little tough though. Like everyone knew who you were. So like everyone would definitely, because like when I was playing, like we all knew who the good players were. Like, oh, I'm definitely going to try hard against this guy. So
no, people, they always ask me, what, like, okay, like they would assume, okay, this is one of the better players or whatever, which is fine. It's obviously a good thing when people think you're good, but for me, I never took it as a ton of pressure. I didn't really care. I tried to have fun with it, and that's what life is. I mean, we're here to have a good time for 80 years, and not to try to take it. People take themselves too seriously in general. I mean, everybody does, especially some of these people who have been deemed more important than others on social platforms. It's still just life, and it's really not that serious.
Was there like a moment, and I know this is going to sound like, I don't mean this to sound like bad or anything, because I was an athlete too. Like I Division I in college, whatever. Like I really thought for a time, like I'm going to go to the Olympics and be a springboard diver. Did you have a moment where you were like, because I know I had this moment too when I was in college, where I was like, oh, I'm not going to make it. Like I'm as high as I'm going.
Right. Yeah. For me, it was because I was committed to Florida State, and then I I got hurt, and then I ended up having these issues with my credit. So I wasn't actually able to go to Florida State and play. So once I transferred into a smaller school, I was like, I'm ready to be done with this. Like that was pretty much how I felt. And from that point forward, I was just really enjoying my final years as a baseball player. And I always knew that, honestly, I love baseball, but who doesn't love the money in baseball? And there's plenty of money, especially in today's social media world. I mean, there's people that are comedians. There's people that are, I mean, I saw Sebastian Maniscalco himself making like $30-40 million last year. And I'm like, what? I'm like, I would almost rather be someone on social media with a platform like Joe Rogan making $50 million a year than even being an athlete. I mean, these people literally are treated like athletes. Like everything about being an athlete besides playing, they have. So if I can do that, I would love it.
You get to have more drugs, that's for sure.
Word. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you get it.
What was the worst franchise that your dad played for that you hated the most? Because I have an opinion, it's the Mets, because they're just the worst.
No, it actually is not the Mets, because the park was so nice. Their Citi Field was a joke. It was ridiculous how nice it was. And for me, the organization that I disliked the most was the Dodgers. And it had nothing to do with his stay there. It had to do with his exit. And he was asking for a 10-year deal. He wanted to stay there long term. And they straight up told him that nobody is worth the kind of money that you're asking for. And that was the most laughable thing, because long and behold, the owners were making as much money as they were, and they were pretending like they couldn't pay him. And now that you see what players are getting paid today, that's ridiculous. It's ridiculous that a player of his talent level couldn't get $10 million for a 10-year span. I mean, imagine if one of the best players in today's game, if Mookie Betts asked for 10 years, $100 million, you get that contract immediately. Yeah. But at that time, my dad was just sent off to Atlanta like he was nobody. And that was to him, to me, it was very disappointing to see him have to go.
Were they just less transparent about how much money they were working with back in those days?
Yep. Yeah, no, it was exactly that. They were just pretending like the players were ridiculous for asking. How could you possibly be asking me for 15 million, 12 million, 13 million? That's so much money. And they were trying to sell it to the people that, okay, Gary Sheffield is a money hungry guy. He's trying to grab us for every penny we're worth and to take advantage of us. Fast forward 20 years, and now you really see who's taking advantage of who. That's the real kicker. I mean, guys like Aaron Judge and Mookie Betts, turns out they ended up being worth close to $40 million, and they were laughing at my dad to ask for 10. And that's something that he'll never forget, and I'll never forget.
Who do you think your dad thought like maybe the most overrated player was of his time?
I wouldn't say he thought guys were overrated, but I know he was very disappointed that Vladimir Guerrero Jr. didn't get his due in 2007 with the MVP race, that he lost to Dustin Pedroia. I know he was very disappointed to see, because frankly, there were a couple players that had better seasons than Pedroia. And not that he thinks that Pedroia is overrated in any way, but because you'll have to ask him about that. But I know he was very disappointed that season Vladdy had just a better season. And he was better in batting average, home runs, RBIs. I mean, he was the best player in baseball in 2007. So I know that's something that bothered him.
Are you sick of people asking you what your dad thinks?
No, it's fine. No, it's totally fine.
Oh, it's interesting. Yeah, it just seems like baseball, they're too corporate. They're not, getting with like the big fans like JOMBOY, who are doing a lot of, fresh takes to get people more interested. And they're not doing everything they can to like build or hold an audience, no matter where they are on the, the attention span scale. So we'll see. Jeez.
It's probably not, nothing's going to change. I mean, as long as the money's coming in, which it will, especially after all this whole COVID hoopla is done with, they will be right back to it. And it's going to be a business. And that's the way they see it.
Yeah, they're going to go down. They're going to screw the players over big time this upcoming year.
Oh, yeah.
They have the financial means too, which is tough. Who do you root for? What's your teams?
I'm a Yankee fan. I root for the Yankees, and they treated me great when I was there. And I had for my short stint there, the George Steinbrenner was awesome to me. He treated the whole family great. And he was doing a ton, really, just for our family. Obviously some private stuff that he was taking care of that we're really grateful for. But George Steinbrenner was a great person, and people don't realize is it's very hard to find people that important in the world that are also that nice and then that take that kind of time. So once he was that way and you have someone that's an owner of a team treating you that way, I couldn't be a fan of anybody else. I mean, to me, they were just first class all the way through.
Wow. Yeah.
That's why the Yankees. Yeah.
I love it. Gary, what you got coming up? What are you working on? Where can people find you, follow you, support you?
Yeah, you can just find me on Twitter or Instagram at Gary Sheffield Jr. And for now, I'm just writing with Outkick. I'm doing a ton of writing, but for me, my dream is to do a podcast, to get on a network and talk. Cause I'm a big talker. I love to make people laugh, and thank you. But I don't, and I've always told people I've always wanted to be a comedian, but I was like, I don't really know.
But you're too good looking.
Oh,
thank you. Don't do it. You're doing better this way. Don't do it. Yeah. I'm doing shows in parking lots. Don't do it. All right. I'm doing shows for cars.
At this point, I'd probably rather do a show in a parking lot. You know what I mean? So but I mean, in general, writing takes a lot of time, and like comedy, you do have to write these jokes and figure out how to design these jokes to land the punchline at the right time. It's very important. But I've always wanted to do something on air, on camera, which you guys get a big opportunity to do and talk in front of people. And that's what I want to do. So I'm hoping that at some point I can transition into that field.
Yeah, you would be great on like a Barstool Sports, or if like, you know, branding wise, like if Lad Bible expanded, you know, so there's definitely a lot of places you would bring a lot of value to. For sure.
I sure hope so. And I'll sell with the younger audiences. Cause I mean, at this point, me looking 16 or 17, my mom literally just said a couple hours ago, she's like, you look 17. Like, you just look 17. Aww. And a lot of it's because I cut my hair. I look super young. My head's super small. It makes me look young. But I'll take it right now.
You could be big on TikTok with that face.
You could. Yeah. You look like you moisturize. Yeah. Get it.
Yeah, big time on the underage TikTok. Yeah. TikTok is the creepiest platform that ever came out. And it is scary. Yeah, I don't know what they're doing over there.
It's really weird.
They're making a lot of money. That's what they're doing.
Yeah.
Word. Yeah.
Chris,
TikTok and Major League Baseball on there.
Oh, for real? They really should. Yeah. Chris Scopo, where can people find you?
Just at Chris Scopo on social media. I have a podcast about the Mets called Sell the Team, which they did, thankfully. So I got to change that podcast, but it'd be Sell the Team. And yeah, at Chris Scopo on all platforms.
Beautiful. Sean Morton.
Quickest way is on Facebook on Sean Morton. I got 3 weekly podcasts. So Who's Your Band, which is a music podcast, which Chrissy was great enough to be on with me. Mount Rush with a great comic, Jeff Paul, as well. Mount Rushmore Radio, where we take different topics every week with my best friend, and we pick the greatest 4 of each topic. And then Couch Time with my dear friend Donna V, which is more of 2 comics doing self-help and being psychologists to each other. So all 3 are on Facebook and YouTube weekly. So check them out.
Awesome. This was great, guys. Thank you so much.
A lot of fun.
Well, thank you.
Thanks.